Welcome to Conoce, Ama y Vive tu Fe. This is your brother and host, Luis Roman. And today we are broadcasting this show or episode, this program in English. We're going to have subtitles on the bottom. As you guys know, we've done this before. And I have the producer and host of Miracle and Prophecies of San John Bosco. This is a YouTube channel. This is a great project that I want to recommend today. And we have Mr. Matthew Miller, who's going to talk about San John Bosco. He's going to talk about this project. We're going to know and learn so much about this great saint today. But that's not going to be enough. That is going to lead you to go to his channel. And hopefully you will see all the content that he has. It's amazing. I have seen some of the videos. And some of the things that he shared, I didn't know. And I have a master in theology. So I really go there and look to his channel and his material. You're going to learn a lot about San John Bosco, who is a saint that can give us light on these times that we live in now of confusion, of bad theology, of everything that's going on. I think this is one of the saints that we should pray for intercession and help right now. So, Mr. Matthew Miller, welcome to the program. How you doing?
Good. I'm doing good. Thank you so much for having me. You've been an inspiration for a long time now.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know how good is your Spanish, but thank you for that. I really appreciate it. As I always do, I was telling Mr. Miller behind the scenes, before we started recording, we always start with a prayer. So we're going to start with an Ave Maria in Latin or Hail Mary, in Latin. And this prayer, we're going to pray in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost. Amen. Mr. Matthew, I'm going to do the first part. You do the second, okay?
Excellent.
Ave Maria, gratia plena, Dominus tecum, benedicta tu in mulieribus, et benedictus fructus ventris tui, Iesus.
Sancta Maria, Mater Dei, ora pro nobis peccatoribus, nunc et in hora mortis nostrae. Amen.
Amen. In nomine Patris, et Filii, et Spiritus Sancti. Amen. All right, perfect. We are ready. Okay, Mr. Matthew, I would like to give you a couple minutes so you can introduce yourself. Who's Matthew Miller? Why are you doing this? Who are you?
Okay. So I am a full-time volunteer for America Needs Fatima. I've been doing it for 10 years, and there's nothing else in the world I would rather do. And about a year ago now, because I've been doing this YouTube channel for a year, America Needs Fatima asked me to do a YouTube channel all about St. John Bosco. It could have been many saints. And they brought up, well, what about St. John Bosco? And to me, he was absolutely perfect. I'd actually already read a lot of his stories for other platforms, actually. I'd read probably about 10 of his other dreams on my own personal podcast. So when I heard them say, how about St. John Bosco? I said, well, that's an amazing idea. I went with it. Now, they wanted to follow the style of this other channel that is also kind of a sister organization of America Needs Fatima in England. It's called Following Padre Pio. Awesome channel. And it's essentially just a man in a room talking to the channel, kind of like I'm doing now, about Padre Pio. I think it's 4 times a week. And that's the style they wanted me to emulate. And I had done a lot of other things. Like I was kind of a reporter for America Needs Fatima for a long time, very action-packed. I even investigated Chop, in near Seattle, and some really crazy things in the past. But doing this was a big switch. So, in my opinion, I thought there's no way people are just going to listen to someone in a room just talking to them about something. And then I looked at their channel, Following Padre Pio. They have so many followers, and another inspiration was you. Because you're essentially a man in a room talking to the camera, and it doesn't seem to make sense because in a YouTube space where you have people destroying Ferraris, or doing something crazy for views, how in the world would talking about a saint into a camera get any views? So then I looked at other people that did the same idea, and there's this fellow, he goes by Dry Creek Wrangler School. and he has a cigar and he's on a ranch and he's talking into the camera. And there's one, it goes like, I think the title is "When You Just Ain't Got It All Together," right? And it's completely atheistic, but it's good common sense. I don't think he's an atheist, but it's just common sense. It has millions of views. And whenever he would get off topic and he'd say, okay, this is how you cinch up a horse, people wouldn't watch it. So it was philosophy. And I think he blew up right around 2020. So I thought, okay, people now are open in a YouTube space to hear about philosophy, theology, higher learning, basically, because people are growing up on YouTube. So you have like 30, 40-year-olds that are on YouTube now trying to learn stuff. So I didn't think this was going to work. We decided, all right, we're just going to tell 3 stories a week about St. John Bosco on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And it's not going to go over 12 minutes. That's our rule. We're not going to go over 12 minutes just because we think it's too much for one sitting. Like if you're going to work, you're not going to necessarily have 30 minutes to do that. And then we launch it in the morning. And sure enough, in 7 months, we got 1 million views, which I know other people have done that. But to see, a Saints channel getting that pretty much right out of the gate and the good responses from people and how much they appreciate it, I was kind of blown away. So it did end up working out for me in this way. And the reason why St. John Bosco seemed so good to me for the YouTube space, and he's always seemed good for this fast-paced culture, is number one, there is a lot of material about him. There's so much material. There are 20 volumes written on his life by the Salesians. His Salesians, they're very faithful to their founder, and they wrote down his entire life. They're called the Biographical Memoirs of St. John Bosco, and it's actually by a couple priests, but the main one is Father Giovanni Battista Lemoyne, and they are so thorough. So I would argue that he is the most documented saint ever. And I think that if you study all the saints, they'll sound similar. So they're all a rock of scandal in their time. They say if Jesus came back, they would crucify him again. In a way, that's kind of what happened to St. John Bosco. That's what they wanted to do to him. And the reason why I wanted to choose him also is because every single one of his dreams completes something that scriptwriters call the Harmon Circle. So it's the hero's journey. Basically, the hero's journey, it's the basis of any book or novel. The person starts out in one way. He has a desire. He meets with conflict. He overcomes that conflict. And then he leaves the situation arguably a better person. But he resumes his normal life. And that's St. John Bosco, because he had not just 40 mystical dreams. There's 20 volumes, so I don't know how many dreams he actually had, but I would put it around 100, between 100 and 200. It was easily 100. So the Salesian can correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I've found so many just personally. And he would go to bed at night, and then he would go through these crazy mystical experiences. Like he would see hell, or he would see purgatory, or he would see his pupil that had died some years before, Dominic Savio, in heaven. He was going through these incredible experiences every single night, and that really does complete the hero's journey, So it's just dynamite for storytelling. And that's really what I would like to consider it as. I'm just telling stories, and it happens to uplift you, because that's why I think it's doing well, is that in and of themselves, they are really, really good stories, and you learn something too. I've always been impressed with them, even as a boy. In fact, the first long-form book that I ever read, one was The Grunt Padre about Father Capodanno in Vietnam, and then the other one was Stories of Don Bosco by Peter Lapin, I think is his name. And I loved that book. It was written for kids, and it just gave a general overview of his life. But why I think he's so important is mostly because he was a rock of scandal in his time, like I said. So what does that mean? He wasn't ecumenical. And that's kind of what some leftist Catholics try to push him as, is that, oh, he is no more than a very kind man who took care of orphans and fought against the industrialist capitalist society of his day. So he did help orphans. But what a lot of people don't know is that he also allowed rich people or rich boys to also come into his oratory as well. So it wasn't just about your class, it was about saving souls, you know? So it wasn't the Marxist agenda that they try to put on him. And also, they give the impression sometimes that he's kind of ecumenical, and he wasn't. In fact, when you read about his life, you very quickly learn that people tried to assassinate him constantly. And who was it first? First, it was the Masons. Okay. And the reason why we know this, so don't think it's just speculation. The reason why we know this is that one day, a former oratory student who had graduated, his name was Dassel Alessandro, came back to the oratory, and he was visiting Don Bosco, and he was very agitated. And Don Bosco was saying, my son, you know I love you. I'll help you. What are you going through? And the young man says, I fell upon hard times, and the Masons offered me a position, so I became a Mason. And then we drew lots to figure out who would kill you. And he was sent that evening to assassinate Don Bosco by the Masons. That's very well documented. So that's one group of people that wanted to get rid of him, because Don Bosco was taking care of poor workers, and he would create sodalities for that sort of thing. And the Masons also had their, socialist labor unions that they were pushing. And so they really did not like St. John Bosco getting involved in that whole thing, right? So that was one group. And then this other group that I'm reading about right now, I was so shocked. I thought it was just the Masons that were after them. It's this Protestant sect called the Waldensians. And they didn't believe in any of the seven sacraments. They didn't believe in the Eucharist. They didn't believe in purgatory. They didn't believe in indulgences. And obviously they didn't believe in the authority of the Pope. And the reason why they hated Don Bosco so much was that he was publishing this magazine directly against them. It was called Lectore Cattolicae, Catholic Readings was the name of it. And they actually came to the oratory. One of them appeared to be a minister, and they sat down with him, and they say, all these writings, they're not your best works, and we would like to offer you, I think it was like 1,000 lire, to change Lectore Cattolicae to what we want to be in the magazine. And he said, well, I'm very sorry, that's not what it's for, and you know that, and I can't accept your offer. So then they became very angry, and the oratory boys that were very big and husky started to get agitated because their two visitors were being so violent towards Don Bosco. They said, you're making a mistake. You're making a very grave mistake. I would think about what you're saying. And then Don Bosco was like, what do you mean by that? And they never answered him. And then when they left, they said, we'll be seeing you again. And I'm not kidding you. This is in volume 4 of Father Lemoyne's books that he wrote about St. John Bosco. And I could easily do a month's worth of episodes about how many times the Waldensians tried to kill him in the span of a few years. So the most egregious one, and I'll stop here in a minute, but for me, the most egregious one was that they had this lady pretend that she was sick and dying. And then they invited Don Bosco over to give her last rites. And when he shows up in this building, he already knows something is up. So he brings all of his strongest oratory boys, but he leaves them outside. He goes up to the room, and there's a sick lady, but he can tell that she's not dying. So then he knows the game is up. Then he knows someone's trying to kill him. And this happened shortly after the Waldensians had threatened him. And then all the lights go out, and he knows that they're all going to attack him, probably with clubs. So he takes this chair and puts it over his head and starts running out the door. But while he's running, they're all raining down this attack on him. They're hitting him with clubs, and they hit his thumb, and it tore the thumb off. Tore the thumbnail off, and till the day he died, there was a scar there. But that was the only time the assassins ever drew blood, and he was shot at point blank, and it miraculously somehow it missed him. He was attacked by a crazy man by the name of Andre that the Waldensians had paid to assassinate him. He was attacked with a meat cleaver, like you name it. But that was the only time they were able to draw blood on St. John Bosco because he was a rock of scandal. So that's just real quick. That's why I think he's so perfect for YouTube. You could easily make a movie about all of the assassination attempts that he went through. It's just stunning, you know?
Excellent, excellent. No, I really like that you mentioned that because with the Saints, unfortunately, most of the movies that actually they're not filmed here in United States, mostly are Italian and is from Spain as well. But unfortunately, yeah, the emphasis is mostly on the work they did in towards poor people, and all that is good, and it was true too. But it's not it. It's more than that. The preaching, the confrontation with the heretics, the defending the faith, all that. Sometimes they left aside, that's why I always say these movies, and they're good just to give you the, let's say, the inclination or the motivation to go and read about the saints. It's like the Bible, the same thing too. Sometimes Protestant, even Mel Gibson with the Passion of Christ is excellent. But I always say there's nothing better than read the Bible. It's a great movie, but read the Bible. That's supposed to be the tendency after you see a movie like that, is to repent yourself, feel bad about your sins. Okay, let me read the Bible. Let me go to the church. Let me go to confession. That's supposed to be the result. So I think that's what they're trying to accomplish sometimes with these movies. But unfortunately, if people stay just in the movie, they're not going to get the true life of those saints. San Padre Pio is another one.
Yes, I was just going to bring him up. I was just going to bring him up. That was terrible.
San Padre Pio even kicked women outside the confessional because they were not dressed properly.
Exactly. He would never.
Yeah, that's not political correct right now. Something like that as a priest. And I know San John Bosco also has stories like that. I wanted to give you a couple minutes about that. I want you to share, because I remember talking with other people, Americanist Fatima. I remember they were telling me about magic. He knew magic. and I was, for me, that was a surprise. I was like, what? And I don't see anything wrong with it, but I didn't know San John Bosco knew magic tricks. Can you, I don't know, any story about that and why?
Well, okay. What I'm about to tell you, I read about when I was 10, because I haven't done an episode on it yet, but I very vividly remember some stories because, first of all, he had a photographic memory, okay, just to start out. And he said, I could memorize anything I read or had heard read. So it's crazy. So when he would go and listen to a sermon as a child, he could memorize the entire thing. No problem. And not only that, he was extremely strong, very strong young man. So he said, okay, why don't I set up, sort of a circus, and I'll perform tricks for people. And then at the end, I'll say, okay, if you want to see this final trick, you have to listen to the sermon from this morning because you all didn't go to mass. So that's kind of why he got into it. And that's the only reason why he would get into things like that, is because he saw that it did apostolate with people, and it helped, he used it for a good end. And I haven't found this story either more recently, but I'm sure I read it also in that book when I was younger. This is just to give an example of why he would do things. It was for the glory of God. But I remember hearing that he used to play the violin, and anything he did, he was extremely good at. That doesn't necessarily mean that every saint is good at everything, but in this case, St. John Bosco just happened to be good at very many things, And then you have other saints where they're just a mess, like Joseph Cupertino. But for whatever reason, St. John Bosco, whatever he picked up, he did it really well. And then one time when he was playing the violin or the fiddle, everyone started to dance around him. And it wasn't the most moral way of dancing. So right then and there, he broke the violin, and he never, from what I understand, he never played it again. So I'm gonna have to find that story, but that's something that I heard when I was younger. And back to the magic trick thing, basically he got so good at doing these magic tricks that people thought he was possessed, But it was very simple sleight of hand. So they said, you need to talk to the bishop because I think you're possessed. So he went and visited the bishop, and he walks right in to his office. and they're talking about magic, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Don Bosco produces his watch, the bishop's watch, a pocket watch. And then the bishop starts freaking out. He says, "Oh, you're you're definitely possessed. Get out of here! Call the exorcist." And he says, "Your Excellency, it's very simple. I came in earlier, and you were praying in front of a statue of the Blessed Virgin, and you just happened to check the time, and you left your watch on the prie-dieu. You left your watch on the kneeler. So after you left, I just picked up the watch and put it in my pocket, and that's all any of this is." And he would just use it. He would use these magic tricks to get people's attention, and then do apostolate with them. So I just did a story where he would finish school very quickly so that he could do apostolate with this young Jewish boy. He would go to this Jewish bookshop, and there was a very wise Jewish man that ran it, and all he was doing was trying to convert the Jewish bookseller. But then this young man comes in, and he's very accepting of the faith. And even though he got a lot of pushback from the family, they were extremely angry, he managed to convert this young man when Don Bosco was like 17. So he always did apostle with people. If he ever was doing something, it was to save souls, And that is the neatest thing about reading about any saint, is that you hear it, and because of the sense of the faithful, because of sensus fidelium, when that makes sense. When someone is a saint. You hear that and you're like, oh yes, that's totally how a saint would act. So for instance, when a woman would visit him to get counsel, which they would many times, he would make eye contact with them, but if they were badly dressed, he would only look at the floor, and you hear that and you think, that is so logical, and he had a lot of guidelines for his priests, how to handle their parishioners. He was so smart about, cautioning people against temptation. And he was just very wise, and that's why when you hear something about, the Padre Pio movie where he says the F word, I saw the scene on YouTube. I saw him say that, and there is no way Padre Pio would have ever said anything like that. Mm-hmm. Then you hear about St. John Bosco, you hear all these different stories. It gives you an idea of how a true saint acts, and it gets rid of so many myths, because liberal Catholics today would have you believe that when he was a young man and attending that Jewish bookseller, he wouldn't have tried to convert the bookseller at all. No. Because we're of the same faith, It's not that at all. He was trying to convert him, and he did end up, by extension, converting the young man that he met in the bookstore as well. So that's just like a flavor of how he interacted with people every day. And there's another one. I was speaking to your son Kevin the other day, and he said, "You know what my father would like to hear about? It's the story of his bilocation."
Go ahead. Yes. Yes, I want to hear that.
Okay, so this is pretty crazy. So so far this is the only time I've heard of him bilocating. It might actually be a trilocation. So for those that don't know, bilocation is where, through God's grace, a saint can be in two places at once. So I can be talking with Mr. Roman here, and I can also be playing with my dog, on the other side of this property. Through God's grace, saints could bilocate. And there's this case where St. John Bosco needed a break from all of his oratory boys, all of his oratory students. They were getting to be just too much, so he needed to take a break and go out to the countryside to a church there and write and help out the church there. So at that time, he writes a letter to the oratory boys, and he says, I saw you talking when it was supposed to be grand silence, in the oratory. I saw boys sneaking out and not attending mass, church services on Sunday and going swimming. And this was very shocking to them because there were 3 boys that went out. Of course, it was on Sunday, and they went swimming without permission, and they missed mass. And all 3 at the same time felt kind of lashing on their shoulders at the exact same time. And when Don Bosco came back, he confirmed that it was through his telegraph wire that he was able to discipline those boys. So one of the only times it's recounted that he bilocates, it's to punish disobedience, because that's what the devil is all about. The devil is all about disobeying and not respecting your superiors. And the reason why I think it may have been a trilocation, so 3 places at once, is because there was also an oratory boy that was dying very far away, you know? So all these areas are 20 miles apart, you know? And he was able to assist this oratory boy when he died. Nobody else saw him there, but Don Bosco said, yes, I assisted him at his death. He died at, I don't know, 3:15. And his father confirmed, yes, that my young man died at 3:15. So that's the only case that I can find where he bilocates. And I'll probably come across many more, but I just thought it was so interesting that the one time he bilocates, it's to punish disobedience. You know, it's very interesting. And the 3 boys had no idea what happened until Don Bosco said that he saw them. They're like, oh, it must have been Don Bosco that whipped us, you know? It's great, you know.
Very nice, very good, very good. Thank you, Matthew, or Mr. Miller, for that. I really appreciate it. Now, I want to talk about the channel, okay?
Okay.
Content like the story that you just mentioned and you told us today, and more are on this channel. How people can go there? What is the name of the channel? Is in YouTube,
sure.
I'm assuming. And can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yes, it's called The Miracles and Prophecies of St. John Bosco. And the reason that we named it such a long name is because if you type in St. John Bosco, you come across, on YouTube, you come across all these different football teams, like these college football teams. So we wanted to differentiate our search from that. There's also another very easy way to find it, which is typing in Don Bosco stories, and you're sure to find my channel, you know, if you type in that. Yeah, if people want, they can enroll for our Saturday Mass intentions for the promoters of St. John Bosco. We have a priest that offers Mass in the traditional Byzantine rite. And I'm pretty sure you'll be able to provide the links of both the channel and the promoters of St. John Bosco link, because if you type in your intentions, you'll be included in the Saturday Mass intentions every weekend. So that was pretty great to be able to do that. So yeah, that's why we named it The Miracles and Prophecies. But I haven't even told you a miracle yet. I mean, bilocation's a miracle, but just know that Don Bosco raised one of his oratory boys from the dead so that he could so that the young man could go to confession, because he had a mortal sin on his soul. He had been dead for like 2 days, and then Don Bosco went down and he literally resurrected him. It was his wake. He resurrected him. The young man went to confession to St. John Bosco, and then Don Bosco said, you can either go to heaven now or you can stay alive. So here you have a man literally having the power through God over this young man of life and death. And the young man says, I want to go to heaven. And he says, all right, goodbye then. And then the young man dies. You know, that's a crazy miracle. And if I forget which volume it is, when he's visiting Rome, which I will be doing many more miracle stories, and I think I've already done 20 or 30 miracle episodes so far. When he visits Rome, people were just it was like a mob following him around, begging for him to work miracles. And there was a situation that was kind of like the woman touching our Lord's cloak and getting healed. There was a situation like that. He would work miracles right and left. He put all the dentists in Turin out of business because he had this thing where he would just touch you and you would lose your toothache. You know, it was incredible. That was one of the things. There was a young man that had gangrene in his leg, and he managed to take the suffering on himself, and the gangrene was removed. The list goes on and on and on. I'm not doing it justice, but there are so many episodes about his miracles now. It's just crazy. And as far as his prophecies, I could tell you a bunch of them, but one that I just did, so it's not going to come out for another month because I'm a month ahead. It was about his the activities of the Silesians in South America. And you would think, okay, well, yeah, he just predicted how far the Silesians would go. but it's much more than that. And I didn't realize this. It's a very long mystical dream. It's a mystical vision. And sometimes how these mystical visions would take place is that he's in his room, and then all of a sudden, all of the objects in the room would disappear. So it was a dream, but it's obviously a vision sent from God. So, but don't start reading into your dreams or anything like that. He's a very special saint, and even he didn't believe them at first, and then it became very, very clear. And I think this will convince you as well that his visions were real. So at that time, the cartographers knew very little about the Andean mountains, so the Andes. They thought it was one homogeneous block. They thought it was just a wall that separated it was just a wall. But in the vision, he sees that there are mountain passes to get through the Andes, and that's what his Salesians would use. He also saw in the vision the river Pará in Brazil, and he knew the sources of many different rivers, and he was riding on this mystical train, so he's on a railway carriage. He's in a railway carriage, and the railway hadn't even gone through the parts of South America that he was traveling on, so eventually everything that he saw came to pass, including the mountain passes in the Andes, and charting out different rivers and saying, oh yeah, this is the source of this river. Nobody knew that stuff, and Don Bosco predicted it 100% accurately. I was shocked. I knew he made a lot of prophecies, and they all came to pass. But this was the most shocking to me, that he was kind of like Christopher Columbus. He discovered these things, but in a vision, completely accurately. So that was incredible to me.
That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know that neither. I think I had one episode or two, but I talk about the one that is very famous is the one that he see basically the big boat that is the church, and he see two pillars. That's the one. And so, go ahead.
Yeah, it's so funny. I was saving that for the 100th episode, so that hasn't been. I don't know when this interview is going to go out, but it's supposed to go out. I think it's September 11th. Somewhere around there. But I was saving it for the 100th. But that, to me, that's the most interesting dream. He's basically telling people, if there's crisis in the church or of any type, you need to have a firm devotion to Our Lady and the Blessed Sacrament. So it was pretty amazing. And I guess I should explain why I have my dog here. It's because I talk about how Don Bosco's guardian angel appeared to him. In my opinion, his guardian angel appeared in the form of a dog, a massive gray dog that looked like a wolf. He looked very fierce, but he was very loving to Don Bosco. And in that episode, when I was talking about how many times Grigio had saved him from Masonic attackers, that was at the point where he got shot at point blank. And Grigio, the dog, comes up and knocks the pistol out of the assassin's hand. That's how incredible this dog was. And in that episode, I had my dog, and his name's Griffin, and people really liked seeing him in the background. So I started putting him, I think, in every other episode, because it's pretty tiring for him to wait around, every single time, because sometimes it can take a while for me to deliver it. But yeah, that's why he's here.
That's nice. That's very nice. Very good, Matthew. Really, I asked the audience, we're going to share all the links. I'm going to share the link for the channel. And any other links that you want to send me, send it to me. I will put them in the description and also in the comments, because sometimes people have problem to go to the more button and go down and all that. And so I'm going to put them on the comments, and it's going to be pinned. So you have all the links right there. And
That's
you can
awesome.
go and subscribe to his channel. You're going to learn so much about San John Bosco as you learn in this half an hour that we just talked, okay, about these great saints. Así que you don't waste your time. I ask my audience, even los que hablan español, the ones that speak Spanish, go there. Even YouTube had the option. I know it's hard sometimes for some people, but you go there, you can put subtitles in YouTube, and they're pretty good. that if you don't know English too well, but you need subtitles in English, because I know a lot of Latinos here in the United States, for us, sometimes we watch movies in English, but we like to put the subtitles in English too. So that way we understand everything. You can do that in YouTube easily. Okay, so don't miss any of those episodes. Mr. Miller, I would like to give you a couple minutes to conclude, and with that we say goodbye.
Yeah, I mean, I never feel like I can properly do justice to him, because I'm still learning about him every single day, and I'm constantly shocked. You know, I've done 110 episodes now, about 12 minutes each. That's a lot of hours where you're talking about a saint, and I never run out of content to talk about. I think I could probably keep doing this for 5 years. But if you want to learn how a saint acts, and if you want to learn about the beauty of God in somebody's life and how that can be radiating out of someone, I would say that's the reason to watch the channel. You know, it's not going to be fancy. You know, it's literally just like this. But the one thing you can rely on is content, hopefully clearly given, 3 times a week. You know, there's not going to be a whole lot of interviews, you know, or anything like that. But it is just going to be talking about truths of the faith through through the lens of St. John Bosco. So yes, that's about it.
Excellent.
I think my dog's done. So
yeah, no, it's okay. It's good. Perfect. Well, Matthew, I wish you the best. You know, my channel is your channel too. We're here to support each other.
You are so kind.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. No, I ask you, everybody, my audience, to please pray for Mr. Matthew Miller.
Thank you. He can
keep doing this job. We know sometimes, you know, we are busy with other things, but you know, as a Christian, we get attacked all the time, not only by humans, by the devil. So sometimes we like, I don't want to do this anymore. I feel tired or whatever. To give him, you know, persistence and to keep doing, you know, what he's doing.
Yes.
And he's a young man. He has a lot of years ahead. So I will say, you know, let's ask St. John Bosco also to protect you and bless you.
Thank you.
And thank you. I mean, that's it.
You know how I found out about your channel? I don't know if you know this.
No, I saw you.
I saw you live streaming at the March for Life.
Oh, yes. Uh-huh.
And I said, who was that? And they said, oh, it's this channel. And they said it in Spanish, and I had to ask them to repeat it about 4 or 5 times. And you were getting just a crazy amount of views. And that, for me, that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, that can work. You know, just talking into the camera, that could actually work as long as it's good content, because people are starved. They're starved of good doctrine. So that's what I mean. Like, I obviously don't know Spanish. I can understand parts of what you say, but I still go and check it out. I still go and look at it every now and then, because it really did inspire me. I'm serious. I called it the magic phone because you were live streaming on it and you were getting tons of views. You know, so anyway, I want to thank you for inspiring me, honestly.
That's nice. Thank you. No, thank you for those words. And this is the St. Paul used the epistles and the mail service, we can say, in that time for his letters.
That's
and
a good point.
The Rose of Rome. You know that's what the providence of God used at the beginning, right, of Christianity. Now we have YouTube, we have Facebook, we got all these that we know. We have also bad things in it in this technology. But we can we need to use them for the good of all the people, and it's a way to reach out thousands and thousands of people, and it's something that we have to do. If we have the means and we are inspired to it, let's do it. You know, that's what I always say. You know, we don't stop, and especially if it's for Our Lady and for our Lord. So, Mr. Matthew, I will with that, I think we done for today. I really appreciate that you being on my show and on my program.
Thank you.
And I invite again everybody to go to his channel and subscribe. All right.
Thank you very much.
Well, God bless you. God bless you.
God bless you too.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.